My name is Grace Knight. I am from Tyler, Texas. I am 27 years old and I have cystic fibrosis. I was diagnosed with CF when I was a year and a half. And pretty much from the moment that I was diagnosed, my family has been very involved in fundraising and advocacy with the CF Foundation. And so that's just kind of the way that I grew up. My parents felt like that was incredibly important, that that was the way that we can make a difference and make sure that I had a very bright future. So I was always exposed to it. It was something that we did as a family. It was something that I continued to do as I got older. But I don't think that I've ever fully understood what it meant to be an advocate as a patient with CF until I went to college and really had to become independent in the way that I took care of myself. At the time that I graduated from high school, I decided I wanted to go to the University of Pennsylvania. And that was all the way in Philadelphia. I didn't have any family there. I had literally never visited there until I got accepted to college. And so it was a very hard transition trying to take on CF and go to college at the same time. At the time that I graduated from high school, my wonderful pediatric CF doctor, who I know is in the room right now, Dr. Frankie Curso, he decided that he wanted to retire. And so I was really tasked with finding a new CF doctor that would be just as awesome at taking care of me and prioritizing my care in the way that Dr. Curso was. And if any of you know Dr. Curso, that's a very difficult thing to do. And so, because I was 18 at the time, I could no longer go to a pediatric center and I had to transition to an adult CF clinic. And I chose to go to one in Philadelphia because that was convenient for me where I was going to college. And at the time that I made that transition, it was a very stark transition because in the pediatric world, everyone is very caring, they're very loving. Your parents are there really bearing a lot of the emotional burden because they're the ones dealing with the insurance, dealing with the specialty drugs, all of those things. Your parents are really the forerunners in navigating that aspect. In the adult CF clinic, at least the one that I went to, it was very hands off, the approach. They treated me as if I was an adult, even though I had been an adult all of 6 months probably when I first came to them. And that was very hard because I was used to my parents being there and being able to help me, and they're looking at me and basically wanting me to make all of the medical decisions. And at the same time, the clinic I went to, they were not alarmed by any of the things that were happening with CF because they saw adults who were very sick all the time. And I had to be very vocal with them if something was going wrong with my health for them to pay attention. At the same time that that was happening, I was having to learn how to talk with the insurance company, or to be more honest, fight with the insurance company. As most of my conversations with them go, I was having to learn how to order my specialty medication to my dorm room, trying to figure out how I could make sure I got all my treatments in and prioritize my health at a time when all of my friends at college were there to have a good experience and have fun. At the same time that all of that was happening, I started to see a decline in my health, and it was very alarming. And I tried to speak up with my physician. I tried to tell him something is wrong. This is not my normal. We need to be paying attention to this. And he just didn't listen to me. And he just didn't pay attention to the fact that I was progressively getting worse. And eventually I had to find a different CF doctor because I came to the realization that the one that I currently have was going to let me die on his watch. And at the time that I finally found a new CF doctor who would listen to me, who would care about me, I was diagnosed with a nontuberculous mycobacterium. And at the time that that diagnosis happened, I had had pneumonia for probably about 3 months. And once I got that diagnosis, I had been in and out of the hospital. And then I lived in the hospital for a month trying to get my health under control. After that month, I would then do an entire year of antibiotic cocktail treatment on IV and oral antibiotics. And because of the entire experience, my body was so weak that I had to take a medical leave from college. And I felt like that entire year was the hardest year of my life because every single negative consequence that you could ever have happen to you with CF hit me all at once. And that was a very hard thing for me to kind of deal with and manage as someone who is now an adult with CF, having to do it all on their own. And there was a very big moment when I had to look at myself in the mirror and say, Grace, this is your disease. This is your life. This is not your parents' life. This is not your parents' disease, your physician's disease, your friend's disease. It is up to you if you live or die. And you have to decide if you're going to fight this with every single thing that you have, or are you just going to give up? And I chose to fight it with everything that I had. And part of that experience was recommitting to advocacy as now an adult with CF, because it became even more personal. It was already personal before. I still had the disease, but now the entire burden of it was on me to figure out how I can navigate it and make sure that my future was bright for myself, because no one was going to force me to do it. I was an adult. And I had to decide if I was going to do the treatments, if I was going to speak out about this or not. And that's what I chose to do. And I tell you this story because if you're a patient with CF, I want you to know that your voice is the most important voice in the room, because you're the one who wakes up every day and has to live this disease and has to bear the negative consequences that come with it. And that's a very powerful thing to talk about, to experience. And when you share that story with other people, they're impacted. They feel what you're feeling, and that inspires them to make a change and to support this cause. If you're a parent, if you're a family member, if you're a friend of someone with CF, your voice is so impactful, especially to the person that you're advocating on behalf of. Because a lot of CF patients are too young or too weak, too sick to be able to speak out for themselves. I know that's a position that I have been in multiple times of my life, and I relied heavily on my parents to advocate on my behalf and speak out when I absolutely could not for myself. And I have been blessed. I have been absolutely blessed to have been able to benefit from the fruits of my labor. I have been able to take the new pharmaceutical drug Trikafta and to benefit from the research. And I can tell you that Trikafta has absolutely changed my life. It turned my life from barely being able to graduate college to being able to become an attorney and live a successful life. But at the same time, when I go out and advocate, of course, I'm talking about my story. I'm talking about all of the things that I've experienced, because that's what I know. That's what I've experienced. That's really, I'm an expert in those matters. But at the same time, what weighs so heavily on my heart is the patients that Trikafta cannot reach, because those are the people that are in that same position that I was in before I took this drug. I will never forget waking up every day and thinking, okay, if I can just fight as hard as I can today, maybe I can make it till tomorrow. And there's a lot of CF patients that are still in that space right now, hoping and waiting that there will be a drug soon that will save their life as well. And that's really why I continue to advocate, is of course my own experience, but because of those people that I know exactly what they're feeling. And I know that we together can help make a brighter future for them and make a drug possible for them. And in closing, I just want to say thank you so much for being an advocate and an ally for patients with CF. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my story and really dedicate yourselves to this cause. I've always said that there will be a cure in my lifetime. That's something that I believe in, that I strive for, and that I absolutely will never give up on. And I hope that everyone who's listening to me today will continue to fight for that dream, to fight for that goal, and that you absolutely will not give up on it either. Thank you so much for having me, and let's make CF stand for Cure Found.